I don't know if you remember back in 2003 when Franklin Graham came to town,
Yeah.
and it was at the Salem. Yeah, it was in Salem.
I was in the choir.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay, so I didn't go out into the audience because they had cameras. I'm sure it was. I was thinking it might be televised,
Yeah.
and I didn't want the elders in my congregation to know that I was even there. And so I went, I listened, and I accepted the Lord under the bleachers. And so I went to the elders and told them, doctrinally the things that I had learned that were wrong. And, I had all my scriptures laid out. I had handouts for them as well. And they told me, we don't want to hear any of it.
Mm.
And so they called my brother and my mother in Florida, who are also Jehovah's Witnesses, and told them what had happened. And so my brother calls me up. And at this point, my store was at Crossroads Mall before Advance Auto took over. So they called me up and they told me that they were not going to speak with me anymore.
Mm.
Unless it was an emergency, they would not be speaking with me.
Wow.
So when I hung up, of course, I was in tears. But I knew that I could not help them to see the falsehood if I stayed in it. So anyhow, I'm bawling, just bawling, and in comes a lady into my store. I don't know who she was. Probably was angelic because I never saw her before and never saw her again. But she made me crack up laughing. I guess she saw me crying, and she just, I can't tell you what she said, but she was just cracking me up. So then down the road, okay, so I get saved, and the man from Shenandoah Baptist, he felt like, okay, we got to find you a church home. It was like hand over mouth. So one of the pastors said to me, he prophesied, he said, the Lord has said your son will be saved. So I went home and I told my son, and he was like 17 at the time, and he just kind of blew me off because he was kind of into this girl, and then the relationship ended very quickly. I'm thankful for. But he said, well, if the prophecy is true, it'll come true, and if it's not, it won't. Well, about a month later, I was at North Roanoke Baptist Church. They have that, that Halloween thing they had every year, around that time. And so we were standing in line. It was the last day of the event. And there was a crowd of people behind us, and there was a group from Parkway Wesleyan in front of us. So the man came, and the cutoff was right at Evan and me. We could not go. Everybody else behind us couldn't go in because if the event was over, that was the last group that they could, fit in at the time. They said, you have to come back next year when we have it. So for whatever reason, my feet would not move. And I just stood there. And, Evan was telling everybody to leave. People behind me was leaving. Evan was standing right here with me. And so the man came back and he said, 2 people from Parkway Wesleyan stepped out of place so that you and your son could go in. And so that's how we got to go in. And Evan, it was just like a miracle. You know how he went in one way and he came out with an absolute glow. He had accepted the Lord. And so he got baptized at Parkway Wesleyan because they stepped out of line for us to go in. So that next Sunday, we were at their church, and we were there for like 6 years. And so that's part of his salvation story as well as mine.